There are two kinds of players in Hell Let Loose. The first player wants to drive this truck, so they simply run up to it, hold F to get in, start the engine, and drive on their merry way. Then we have the second player. They know they can enter the driver's seat by holding F anywhere on the truck, but for some reason they always find themselves going to the driver's side door to get in anyway. Stick around to find out how this relates to Postscriptum, and if you're the second type of player, how it just might be the game you've been looking for.
What'd he say his name was?
Gebatron. I'm sure by now you've heard the news that Offworld Industries, the group developing the wonderful game Squad, has purchased Postscriptum and has announced they will pick up development to keep the title alive. Postscriptum started its life as a mod to Squad, so the game is right at home. This announcement has led to a swelling of player numbers, and interest has grown around the title, specifically amongst the Hell Let Loose community. While I don't have near as many hours in Postscriptum as I do in Hell Let Loose, I did start playing it about 3 months before I got involved with Hell Let Loose beta testing way back in June of 2019, so I have seen many updates come and go and have been playing Postscriptum off and on over time. As a matter of fact, some of the reasons I was an early supporter of Hell Let Loose was because it was kind of marketed as the new Postscriptum with better graphics, historically accurate and location accurate maps, and the added layer of managing how to get resources to your front lines. All that to say that while I may not be an expert or study Postscriptum like I do Hell Let Loose, I do have knowledge of the game and how it works and the differences between the two games. Those differences are why you clicked on this video, but I'm not going to cover every difference in detail. We could talk about sound design and how Postscriptum has some of the best sound design in the whole of the wargaming genre, while Hell Let Loose is slightly lacking in that category. Still good, just not as good. Or conversely, we could talk about how Hell Let Loose is simply a better looking game, as it is newer and Postscriptum's graphics look a little dated. Not bad by any measure, just a little dated. Along those same lines, we could talk about how Hell Let Loose's maps are historically accurate, with the exception of the newest El Alamein map, while Postscriptum's maps are simply made to feel like those locations and are not accurate. We could also talk about Postscriptum's massive roster of armored vehicles when compared to Hell Let Loose's much smaller offering. We could also talk about historical accuracy being much more focused in Postscriptum, with only appropriate weapons being available during certain battles, while Hell Let Loose plays it much more fast and loose in that regard, even though Team 17 has said they will be focusing more on that in the future. So there are plenty of differences like that, and you can judge for yourself which of those aspects appeals to you. After all, this is not a video where I'm going to claim one game is better than the other. Let's start by talking about a very tiny difference that most players might not even notice. Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised, the M1 Garand. Let's compare the reload animations of the two games after emptying a full clip with Hell Let Loose on the left and Postscriptum on the right. As you can see, not much difference, and I'm not going to get into proper hand placement or anything like that. Now let's compare the difference after firing a partial clip. Did you see it? Let's watch them again and slow it down a little bit. In Hell Let Loose, the player simply ejects the clip and goes about their business. But Postscriptum has the player catch the partial clip as it is extracted from the magazine. This extra action extends the reload time by almost 3 seconds. And 3 seconds is more than enough to make the difference between surviving an engagement or not. In Postscriptum, you'll find there will be occasions where reflexively hitting the reload button will put you at a disadvantage. This disadvantage will likely have an impact on how you handle certain engagements, especially short range or close quarters combat, and this small difference is leading me to my larger point. That being the first real difference between Postscriptum and Hell Let Loose is player character management. The Garand isn't the only weapon in Postscriptum with a little quirk like this. Additionally, Postscriptum allows the player to adjust sights, and appropriate weapons have fire select. But let's move on to a much more impactful aspect of managing your in-game character: stamina and the water canteen. This is often cited by my fellow Hell Let Loose content creators as something they just can't stand about Postscriptum. In Hell Let Loose, you can run, sprint, jump, crawl, and do it all with absolutely zero consequences. However, in Postscriptum, you do have to worry about your stamina, and it will affect how you interact with the battlefield. Not only is movement speed affected, but so is weapon sway. Stamina will drain every time you do strenuous actions such as sprinting or crawling on the ground, and will recover slowly over time if those strenuous actions are avoided. However, stamina can be recovered faster, or its drain slowed, by drinking from your canteen. Newer players will likely sprint to where the action is, then be annoyed when they have low stamina and must, stop and take a drink from their canteen to be effective. More experienced players will understand that drinking before you sprint will mean you slow your drain and arrive at your destination with plenty of stamina to remain effective. But either way, managing your character is a big part of Postscriptum, whereas it's next to non-existent in Hell Let Loose. Another difference between the games in this regard is the time it takes to change your stance. In Hell Let Loose, going from standing to prone to standing again can all be done very quickly, whereas those actions are all done more deliberately in Postscriptum. These extra aspects that the players have to think about and manage throughout the duration of a match in Postscriptum can make the game feel like it's moving at a slightly slower pace, even though sprint speed in Postscriptum is faster than in Hell Let Loose. It also simply takes up more mental bandwidth as there are more micro decisions to be made by the player. Hell Let Loose doesn't have these aspects, so gunplay often feels faster paced. The next real difference has to do with a combination of resources, tickets, and victory conditions. In Hell Let Loose, each player death results in a slight drain on the manpower resource. While this drain isn't ideal, it can usually be ignored with the base resource gain and a manpower node or two. Let's put it this way, a portion of the Hell Let Loose player base doesn't even know that dying does drain manpower. That's how insignificant it is. And either way, it doesn't have an effect on whether you win or lose a match. You can completely run out of the manpower resource and nothing will be affected other than a few commander orders. Same with the other resources. If munitions or fuel run out, you may be fighting with one arm tied behind your back, but the match is not lost. Victory in Hell Let Loose depends on either taking all the territory or holding the majority of territory when the time runs out, depending on game mode. On the other hand, Postscriptum has a ticket system with a finite number of spawns per team. These tickets represent what could be considered the only resource in the game. Tickets are drained for each soldier lost, etc., and there is a slight drain on these tickets if pushed back deep into your territory depending on game mode. Victory conditions are similar, as both games revolve around controlling territory and have time limits, but Postscriptum has those tickets, and once those teams' tickets run out, the game is over no matter who had the most territory. So it is possible to be holding more territory than the enemy and still lose the match. This can lead to vastly different playstyles, especially once those ticket numbers get low. The medic role is much more important in Postscriptum than it is in Hell Let Loose. Without consequences on the metagame for dying in Hell Let Loose, it is much more rare that players will wait for a revive. This translates into a faster feeling experience, as you won't be lying on the ground somewhere waiting for a medic to make their way to you. In Postscriptum, players will frequently wait for a revive because they know if they don't, it could cost them the game in the long run. Now don't worry too much. Most of the time players disregard tickets early in the game, so the fighting is still intense, but this can lead to more reserved fighting towards the end of matches. And it's always disappointing to be holding more territory than your foe and not be crowned the winner. But that's how it goes in Postscriptum, as there is just a little more to worry about than there is in Hell Let Loose. Next, let's talk about Suppression. Both games have a suppression mechanic, so you're probably wondering why I'm bringing this up at all. Well, Hell Let Loose's suppression system may shake your screen and blur your vision some, but it doesn't do anything to actually alter your character. Your aim stays in the same spot in Hell Let Loose, making suppression annoying, sure, and it can be helpful, but it's not something that can be relied on consistently to help you and your squad achieve firepower superiority. Postscriptum, on the other hand, has a much more dramatic and less forgiving suppression system that will alter where your character is aiming. Not by much, but it is enough to throw off your aim, making it much harder to recover from. This has the effect of making more true-to-life World War II era squad-based tactics more effective. Machine gunners will always be a high-priority target for your enemy, and you'll still have to play well, but the lifespan of an MG player in Postscriptum is usually a little longer compared to Hell Let Loose, as they are more effective at suppressing enemy positions. At least that's my experience. Next, let's talk about squad composition. In both games, a squad leader must open up and start a squad. From this point in Hell Let Loose, players are free to pick any role available within that squad, whether it's engineer, anti-tank, MG, whatever. If the squad leader leaves the squad, there are no consequences other than, you'll lose your ability to build squad spawns and communicate with command, but players will still be able to play in the squad without a squad leader and keep their roles. Additionally, this means that teams are able to form many smaller yet powerful squads. So instead of having 2 6-man squads with a more rounded composition, you could have 4 3-man squads all containing, machine guns, anti-tank weapons, and satchels or whatever. Postscriptum is different insofar as for those more specialized roles to open up in a squad, it first must have at least 4 players in the squad. This keeps the battlefield from filling up with too many hyper-specialized squads, but it does limit player choice to a degree. Additionally, if the squad leader leaves the squad, it will automatically be passed down to another player, so squads will always have leadership. Once that new squad leader dies, they will be forced into the squad leader loadout. This can be frustrating for a player that finally got to play with their favorite weapon, but Postscriptum puts a higher premium on team play, while Hell Let Loose allows for more individual freedom. The last real difference I'll talk about here is armor. Hell Let Loose has a very simple armor and penetration system. That doesn't mean it's bad, but it is simple. Each tank only has 3 modules: turret, engine, and tracks. I guess 4 if you count the hull. Destroying the hull is the only way to destroy the tank. Destroying the engine will immobilize the tank, but the other 2 modules cannot be destroyed. Even if their health is completely depleted, they still function. For example, destroying the tracks simply means the tank can only travel in first gear until some repairs are done. On top of that, it doesn't matter if it is our right or left track that's being damaged, as it's all one module. If our right track was getting hit and we need to repair it, not only can we repair our tracks from the left side, but from anywhere on the tank, even the front or the rear. Additionally, there is no way to injure or eliminate the crew inside the tank. There are no compartment modules for crew members to exist in as far as penetration goes. Ammo racks are not modeled, and weak spots are few and far between, leading to heavy tanks or bust type meta. Lastly, you can enter the tank from anywhere on the vehicle. Now, compared to Postscriptum, which has, in my opinion, the premier armor system in World War II gaming, tanks have many more modules and modeled ammo racks, more ammo types, so getting to know weak spots in enemy armor is rewarded, and it pays to damage a tank and decrease its combat efficiency if you can't destroy it outright. Damaged modules must be repaired where they actually are on the tank. For example, the left and right tracks are separate modules, so if your right tracks are damaged, then you need to physically repair your right track. If your tracks are destroyed, then your tank will be immobilized. Players inside the tank are vulnerable and can be eliminated. They are also able to turn out for better visibility at the risk of being less safe. And probably my favorite detail, even though it's less consequential, is that all the extra gear and logs and stuff like that on the outside of the tanks is individually modeled and can affect penetration. Ricochets and shrapnel from non-penetrating shots are dangerous and can injure or eliminate nearby infantry. And finally, to enter a tank in Postscriptum, you have to actually approach the appropriate hatch, meaning that if you want to drive, you must enter at the driver's hatch. Tanking in Postscriptum is a much more authentic and complex experience than the one provided in Hell Let Loose. Whether that's better or not is up to you, and it can be intimidating. It is, at the very least, technically impressive. Check the Postscriptum armored trailer at the top right to learn more about how all this works. Both Hell Let Loose and Postscriptum are fantastic games in their own right, and we are lucky to have the choice between these two. I myself own and play both, and I recommend you do too if possible. I would call both games authentic World War II games, with Postscriptum being more authentic and Hell Let Loose being less authentic. I wish we could put the best parts of both games together. Hell's Scriptum, or Post Loose, or Gebatron's Loose Scrotum.
Oh my god, you can't say that.
Anyway, those are what I think the real differences are between the two games. What other differences between them do you think make the biggest impact? Let us know in the comments. Oh, and before I forget, what does this have to do with the video's intro and those two types of Hell Let Loose players? Well, nothing really. I lied a little bit. The light vehicles in Postscriptum work just the same as they do in Hell Let Loose. You can walk up to anywhere on the vehicle and still get in, and you'll automatically get in the driver's seat. But I'm willing to bet that if you are one of the players that does get in at the driver's side door when playing Hell Let Loose, that you are craving just a little more authenticity, and that's what Postscriptum can offer you. And even if you don't do that, perhaps there is still plenty Postscriptum has to offer you anyway. The community I'm a part of, Glows, just opened up a new Postscriptum server in addition to our already existing Hell Let Loose servers. Those servers are called Glows Battlegrounds. Feel free to play either game on our servers, and consider joining the Discord to better coordinate with teammates. A link to the Glows Discord is in the video description if you are interested. There are also links down there to purchase either Hell Let Loose or Postscriptum. If this video helped you decide to purchase either one of those games, then I would appreciate the support. There are plenty of other links down there to help support what I do here, so check them out as well. Please leave a like to help me beat that algorithm. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you on whatever battlefield you choose. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.